Alright, Shalom Aleichem, Baruch Hu, welcome everyone. We're beginning again the Nachalei Emunah Hasidic Institute program. This week's Parsha we read is Parshas Mishpatim. And in the Zohar, it's very interesting, Parshas Mishpatim brings the Sod HaGilgul, the secret of reincarnation. This is a subject many people are very interested in learning about. And I'd like to provide a very brief introduction to the concept. One major thing that people like to bring up is that they think that that everyone likes to quote people who are a little bit, outside of the mystical realm. The more they want to try to bring about a more rational, quote-unquote, approach to Judaism, and also I would say the word mystical also quote-unquote, but that a lot of people like to quote the Rav Saadia Gaon in Emunah, where it seems that he's saying that there is no such thing in Yiddishkeit as the Sod HaGilgul. Now, this has been misunderstood, and also you have to, first of all, understand the context where he's saying it historically. That's the first point. It's well established that what's considered, I would say, mainstream Islam, and by them they don't believe in reincarnation. So, living in a Muslim country as a Jew, he had to be very careful not to say anything that would offend the authorities of the time and place where he was living. There wasn't, the freedom that we enjoy, thankfully, today. And since this was a secret doctrine, he had no reason particular to bring it out. Furthermore, the Sefer Emunah is largely a work of philosophy, and he was addressing the Greek philosophers who wanted to ascribe the concept of reincarnation as a philosophical, logical argument. And generally, the Kabbalists did not take this approach, although we do see the concept that the Sod HaGilgul answers many questions that we have. It's not that we don't derive it from the question that we say, it must be that there's such a thing as reincarnation, but rather we say that because the sages taught this, so that's how we know it, not because anything else. And in the time of Rav Saadia Gaon, the Zohar was still kept secret. It existed. I'm not sure whether or not he was aware of it, but it certainly existed. It just wasn't published yet. Once the Zohar was published, then the Sod of Gilgul became more widespread. However, even before the Zohar was published, we do have the Sod of Gilgul already mentioned in the Sfarim that historically people agree, secular historians would agree, predate the publication of the Zohar. For example, the Ramban talks about it in his commentary in the book of Genesis, chapter 38, the story of Er and Onan. He mentions the Sod of Gilgul. And the Ramban quite often quotes from the Zohar, not by name, but because again it was before it was published, but we saw the Ramban was aware, Nachmanides was aware of the Zohar even before it came about, and he was seen quite proficient in it. It's very interesting. We see Satmarov actually talks about this in Divrei Yol, Chelek Aleph, page Shin and Gimel. It's a Sod HaGilgul HaYodin Ki Boyim Chidei Segila. So that this, in the old days, the secret of reincarnation was only known to very few people. Avraham Avinu himself knew about it, but he was not at that time in history permitted to reveal it. Later on in Divrei Yol in Chelek Gimel, in page Pei, it says Chochmas a Gilgul Ha'avoderes a Kegman Seid Otzum. The secret of the Gilgul in the old generations was a very big secret. Achash Niskal Sefer Zohar Kodesh, Kisvi Arizal Niskal Dover. Only after it was revealed in the Sefer Zohar Kodesh and the writings of the Rizal, that's when it was revealed. But even before, like we said, even before the revelation of the Zohar, we have already this Inyan Nachmanides brings, it would seem very clearly, and other tzaddikim. And nowadays, it's very well known. And the Arizal brought the Arizal brought this. He has a whole book, the Shar Gugulim. Of course, he didn't write it. Chaim Vital wrote it. In teachings, the Arizal, there's a whole Shar Gugulim. It talks all about different biblical figures who they were reincarnated from. But there are many things with the Indian of Gilgul that people misinterpret as well. And perhaps also this is a little bit what Sadia Gon who was talking about, that there's distinctions between the way that the Soda Gilgul is taught in other circles as opposed to how it's taught according to the Torah. One major issue with the Gilgulim is the practical issue of how we approach Gilgulim. The Zohar revealed that the Gilgul is not only from one person to another, but could also be to animals and to plants and to inanimate objects. And the concept of the reincarnation into animals is a tremendously practical concept in the way that we conduct our lives as Jews. Many are not aware of the depth behind the teachings. And so it brings a stark contrast between the way that the concept of reincarnation and transmigration of souls is approached in other cultures, as opposed to how the Torah teaches it, the way it really is. Although also the difference is also between the way we approach spirituality and physicality, that the Torah teaches as one God, everything is unity. In other cultures teach many, maybe they see ultimately it's all one, but they have period, they have a lot of different directions, and so they have a totally different approach that separates the spiritual from the physical. And denies the physical. Depending on different cultures, it's very complicated. It's not so simple. But the most striking point that we can bring up in how we approach the Soda Gilgul, the secret of reincarnation, is as far as eating is concerned. It's well known in the Hindu culture that many will not eat beef because they say that the cow is a reincarnated person, and we can't eat it. That's what they say, according to the Hindu belief. In the Jewish belief, in the Torah belief, it's the exact opposite. We will say that the person was reincarnated to an animal so he can receive some rectification of his soul. Therefore, we need to eat it with a blessing before and a blessing after. Use that energy to serve God. And even greater, if we eating on Shabbos, then we lifting up that soul back to God. And it's very interesting. It's the reason why we eat fish on Shabbos, because the Kabbalah teaches that if someone was on a higher level, a holier level, to be reincarnated as a fish. Why? One thing about the fish is that the fish is always in the water. It lives in the mikveh. Another issue with fish is the fish doesn't need shechita to be eaten. So let's say a person reincarnates as a cow, a chicken, a sheep, a goat, then part of the tikkun on his soul is that he should go under kosher slaughter. And that pain is part of the spiritual rectification, but also the blessing that's said before the shochet begins to shecht in the beginning of the day. He's bringing a blessing to that soul. We'll continue on the next video.